The rain wasn't supposed to fall that night. Daniel Carter had just finished his second shift at the warehouse. His back ached, his hands were rough, and the only thing on his mind was getting home before his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, woke up from one of her nightmares again. Being a single dad wasn't easy. It never was. 3 years ago, his wife walked out. No goodbye, no explanation. Just a note on the kitchen counter and silence that echoed through every room of their small apartment. Since then, Daniel had lived for one thing only: Lily. Every extra shift, every sleepless night, every dollar saved, everything was for her. That night, the streets were unusually empty. The city lights reflected against wet pavement as rain began pouring harder. Daniel tightened his jacket and walked toward the bus stop when he heard something unusual. A car door slam, then laughter, but not the happy kind. It was broken, unstable. He turned. A sleek black luxury car was parked awkwardly near the sidewalk. Driver's door open, headlights still on, and leaning against the side of it was her, Victoria Hale, the CEO of Hale Industries. The woman whose name was printed on every company memo. The woman whose face appeared on business magazines. The woman who walked through the office like she owned the world. Because she did. And right now, she could barely stand. Her heels were in one hand, her mascara slightly smudged, her expensive dress wrinkled from sitting on the curb. She was drunk. And alone. Daniel froze. He wasn't supposed to see this. Employees like him, warehouse staff, weren't even allowed near executive floors without clearance. And yet here she was, vulnerable. She tried to take a step. She stumbled. Before she hit the ground, Daniel moved. He caught her. For a split second, their eyes met. Confused. Glass-like. Soft. "You're not real," she murmured. "I'm very real," he replied calmly. Her head rested briefly against his chest. She smelled like expensive perfume, and something sat underneath it. He looked around. No driver. No security. How long had she been here? "Ms. Hale," he said respectfully, "you shouldn't be driving." She let out a weak laugh. "You work for me, don't you?" "Yes." "Then technically, this is still company time." He almost smiled. Almost. Another gust of rain poured down. She shivered, and something inside him shifted. Not attraction. Not ambition. Responsibility. Because no matter who she was, CEO or stranger, she was a human being standing alone in the rain at midnight. "Where do you live?" he asked. She shook her head faintly. "I don't want to go home." That wasn't something a billionaire was supposed to say. Not like that. Not so empty. Her knees buckled again. That's when he made a decision that would change everything. He picked her up, carefully, respectfully, carried her to the passenger seat. He couldn't leave her there. He couldn't let her drive. He couldn't call the company. That would destroy her reputation. So he did the only thing his heart allowed. He took her home, not to her mansion, to his small apartment. And if you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next will change both of their lives forever. The apartment was modest. 2 rooms. Clean. Warm. He laid her gently on the couch, removed her shoes, covered her with Lily's spare blanket. She looked different now. Peaceful. Not powerful, not intimidating, just tired, extremely tired. Daniel stood there for a moment. He could lose his job for this. He could be accused of anything. He could destroy his entire future. But he knew who he was. He wasn't that kind of man. Before going to his room, he left a glass of water and painkillers on the table. And then something unexpected happened. Victoria spoke. Softly. "Don't leave." He turned. Her eyes were half open. "You won't leave, right?" That sentence wasn't drunk. It was afraid. Daniel hesitated, then sat on the chair across from the couch. "I'm here," he said calmly. Within minutes, she fell asleep. And Daniel Carter, the warehouse single dad, sat there all night guarding the most powerful woman in the company. Not because he wanted anything, but because that's the kind of man he was. He didn't know that morning would test everything he believed about himself. The morning that changed everything. Sunlight crept through thin curtains. Victoria woke slowly. Her head pounded, her throat dry, her surroundings unfamiliar. She shot upright. This wasn't her penthouse. This wasn't her bed. She looked down at herself. Her dress was still on, her heels neatly placed nearby, water and medicine on the table. She frowned. Memory hit her in flashes. Rain. Falling. Strong arms catching her. A calm voice. "You shouldn't be driving." Her stomach tightened. Oh no. She stood quickly, too quickly, and walked toward the small kitchen. That's when she saw him. Daniel, making pancakes, and a little girl sitting at the table coloring. Lily looked up first. "Daddy, is that your friend?" Victoria froze. "Friend?" Daniel turned. Their eyes locked. There it was. Recognition. And something else. Fear. He wiped his hands calmly. "You're awake." She straightened immediately. CEO mode activating. "What happened last night?" "You were outside your car. In the rain. You couldn't stand. And you brought me here?" Her voice sharpened slightly. "Yes." "Why?" The question wasn't accusation. It was disbelief. Daniel met her eyes evenly. "Because you needed help." Silence filled the room. Lily smiled brightly. "Daddy stayed up all night to make sure you were okay." Victoria's breath caught. "All night," she whispered. Daniel shrugged lightly. "It's nothing. Nothing. To him, maybe. But to her? It was everything. No one had stayed for her in years. Not friends. Not partners. Not board members. Everyone wanted something. Everyone calculated. Everyone negotiated. But this man had nothing to gain. She walked closer, lowered her voice. "You could have taken pictures, called reporters, ruined me. I'm not that man." She searched his face. And for the first time in a long time, she believed someone. Lily tugged her sleeve. "Do you like pancakes?" Victoria looked down at the little girl. Something in her chest softened painfully. I don't remember the last time I had homemade pancakes." "Well," Lily grinned, "Daddy makes the best ones." Daniel looked embarrassed. Victoria sat down slowly, took one bite, and suddenly, unexpectedly, tears filled her eyes. Not because of the food, because of the feeling. Warmth, normalcy, safety, things money couldn't buy. She stood abruptly. Daniel's expression changed. He thought she was angry. Instead, she walked up to him and did something neither of them expected. She hugged him, not passionately, not romantically, but gratefully. "Thank you," she whispered. 3 words, but they carried weight. She pulled back, professional mask slowly returning. "Be at my office at 9 a.m. His heart dropped. So this was it. Termination. Investigation. Humiliation. He nodded. "Of course." She looked at Lily one more time, then walked out. Daniel stood there in silence. And if you think this is where things get simple, you're wrong. Because at 9 a.m., in front of the entire executive board, Victoria Hale would make a decision no one saw coming. So make sure you subscribe because the next part will shock you. At exactly 9 a.m., Daniel stood outside the executive conference room. Warehouse boots, simple shirt, nervous but steady. Inside were board members, investors, executives, Victoria stood at the head of the table. Cold, elegant, unshakable. She looked at Daniel, then at everyone else. "I have an announcement," she said firmly. The room went silent. "Last night, I made a mistake." Murmurs began. But an employee of this company showed integrity beyond expectation. She walked toward Daniel. "This man could have exploited me. He could have destroyed everything I built." She paused. "He didn't." Board members exchanged confused glances. "Effective immediately," she continued, "Daniel Carter is promoted to Director of Community Operations." Gasps filled the room. Daniel blinked. "What?" he whispered. She met his eyes. "You understand people. You understand responsibility. And you protect what matters." Silence. Then, she added softly so only he could hear, "And I don't promote people who leave when things get hard." That wasn't about the company. That was about life. About loyalty. About staying. For the first time, Daniel saw something beyond CEO confidence. Loneliness. And hope. He straightened. "I won't disappoint you." She smiled faintly. "I know." And just like that, the single dad who walked home in the rain became the man who would stand beside the most powerful woman in the building. Not because he chased status, but because he chose integrity. And sometimes, that's what changes everything. The announcement didn't end the whispers. It multiplied them. Daniel felt it immediately. The stares in the hallway. The silence when he entered rooms. The subtle smirks. The judgment. Warehouse guy. Overnight promotion? Director. People assumed the worst. They always do. And Victoria knew it. By noon, 3 senior managers had already requested private meetings. One even suggested reviewing the circumstances. Translation. They thought Daniel had manipulated her. Victoria sat behind her glass desk, composed as always. But inside, she was furious. Not at Daniel. At herself. Because for the first time in years, she had acted from emotion instead of calculation. And it terrified her. Meanwhile, Daniel was in his new office. It was bigger than his entire apartment. He hadn't even sat down yet. He didn't feel like he belonged. That night replayed in his mind. The rain. Her voice. "Don't leave." He hadn't imagined the vulnerability in it. But now, she was distant again. Professional. Sharp. Untouchable. At 6 p.m. he received a message. "My office. Now." He walked in quietly. Victoria didn't look up immediately. When she finally did, her expression wasn't cold. It was conflicted. "They're questioning you," she said. "I figured. You could step down," she added carefully. "I can move you to another role." He met her eyes. "Do you believe I deserve this position?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes." "Then I won't step down." Something shifted in her expression. Respect. Most people in that building feared her. Daniel didn't. He respected her. There was a difference. She stood and walked closer. "Do you regret helping me?" she asked quietly. He shook his head. "Do you regret letting me?" Silence. That question hit deeper than either of them expected. Because letting someone help you is harder than offering help. Her voice softened. "I'm not used to people staying." He replied gently, "I'm not used to people trusting." And for the first time in years, Victoria Hale felt understood. If you're still watching, this is where everything starts to change. Subscribe now because what happens next isn't about business. It's about healing. 3 weeks passed. Daniel transformed the community operations department completely. He visited local shelters, created family support programs, started employee childcare assistance. The company's public image skyrocketed. But something else changed too. Victoria started staying late. Not for meetings. For conversations. Small ones at first. Coffee in the office. Quick discussions about projects. Then one night, she asked something unexpected. "Does Lily ever ask about her mom?" Daniel didn't expect that. "Yes," he said honestly. "What do you tell her?" "That sometimes people leave because they're lost. Not because they don't love you." Victoria looked away. "That's kinder than the truth." He noticed the tightness in her voice. "You want to tell me something," he said gently. She hesitated. Then finally, "My father built this company," she said quietly. "When he died, the board tried to replace me." Daniel listened without interrupting. "They said I was too emotional, too young, too soft." Her jaw tightened. "So I stopped being soft." The confession hung in the air. "And last night," she continued slowly, "when I said I didn't want to go home," she swallowed. "I meant I didn't want to go back to an empty penthouse that echoes." There it was. Not the CEO. Not the billionaire. Just a woman who hated eating dinner alone. Daniel spoke carefully. "You don't have to be strong every minute." She gave a faint, sad smile. "That's easy for you to say." "No," he replied. "It's not. I learned the hard way." Their eyes locked. Not as boss and employee, but as two people who survived abandonment differently. And then, Victoria did something bold. "Have dinner with me." He blinked. "As colleagues," she added quickly. But they both knew it wasn't just that. The dinner wasn't extravagant. No media. No executives. Just a quiet restaurant. They talked about Lily. About childhood. About fear. And for the first time in years, Victoria laughed without forcing it. The next morning, headlines exploded. A board member had leaked the story. CEO promotes warehouse worker after private night. The internet twisted everything. Investors panicked, the bravest thing a person can do.